You know what's wild? Right now, while we're recording this, someone out there is launching their first podcast episode. They have got the mic, the intro music, the outro music, maybe even a decent logo. They are excited. And statistically speaking, in about 3 months, they'll probably be done. Not because they ran out of things to say, not because nobody listened, but because they hit that wall, the one that sits right between I made a thing and I built something that lasts. Welcome back, listeners, to this episode of the BizBlend Podcast. I'm your host, Sana, as always, and this is where we talk about the messy, unglamorous parts of building businesses and creative projects that most people don't post, or maybe rather, very seldom post about on LinkedIn. Now, listeners, today's guest, he didn't stumble into podcasting because it looked fun or trendy. He built a veteran powered media network from the ground up, Barracks Media, by understanding what actually breaks when a podcast tries to go from hobby to sustainable business. He has seen talented people do great work and still quietly disappear. He's also seen what separates the shows that stick around from the ones that fade out after episode 12. So if you have ever wondered why your favorite niche podcast suddenly stopped posting, or if you if you're thinking about starting one yourself and you want to skip the part where you learn expensive lessons the hard way, this conversation's for you. So listeners, let's get into it and let's welcome our incredible guest, Donald Dunn. So Donald, welcome to BizBlend, and it's really an honor to have you here. Really excited.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. This is going to be a masterclass, I'm very sure, for the listeners, but before that, for me as well, because I have been into podcasting for more than a year now. And the biggest misconception that people have about podcasting is anybody can do it. Yes, anybody can do it, but it's not the mic or the camera or the studio and the recording and everything. There's so many things happening. But because you're coming in from the industry, so I think we will have so much to learn today. But before that, let's start with a very uncomfortable truth here, Donald, that you have said most podcasts don't fail because of lack of talent or bad ideas, but they fail because of what happens after the recording stops. So, if you can shed some light on that.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of podcasters think that when they come into this podcast,
Mm.
they're they're going to be able to be Joe Rogan by themselves,
Yeah.
and they forget that there is a whole team when those cameras shut off that is working with editing, getting new guests ready. I mean, a whole bunch of off the scene stuff. And I think that's where a lot of podcasters, when they turn that camera off and they say, okay, now I've got my video, I've got my audio, what's next? And that editing phase, the marketing phase, all of those additional things that most creators do not enjoy.
Yeah.
Whether you're an author or a podcaster, we enjoy the creative side. But when you're doing it by yourself, you spend an average of a half hour to an hour doing a podcast, and if it's video, you're going to spend 3 hours rewatching it and editing it, and it all takes time.
Yes, absolutely not. Absolutely. I mean, I enjoy uh, while being on podcast having conversations, but then the real work, it all starts BTS, behind the scenes, and it's not just getting the podcast done and doing everything um, effortlessly or efficiently or seamlessly, but from the time when you're pitching it, you're getting the guests, you're giving them an idea about the show, the calendar management, the scheduling, the scripting, make sure that the guest is there, the last minute changes. I mean, it's a whole lot of a different ball game.
Yeah, you're wearing a lot of different hats. all these major shows have producers, they have marketers, they have editors. They're, all of these people out there that are doing a specific task. And it's because each of these tasks are equally important. Um, they may not be the fun part, but
Mhm.
if you can create the best show in the world, if nobody can understand it because the audio is not good, nobody's going to watch it. If nobody markets it and shares it and gets people to realize where you're at, one of what is it? We're over 3 million podcasts now. If
Yeah.
nobody's, sitting here saying, "Hey, I'm over here in the corner, listen to me," nobody's gonna find you. And lastly, if the cover art or, your title, your SEO, all of those types of things don't come into play either, these platforms are not gonna find you either.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one question that comes to my mind, I'm not sure whether it's a valid question or not, Donald, but this expectation that y- like I would like to be the Joe Rogans or the top podcasters of this
Mhm.
world. Uh, is the disconnect exactly related to the way podcasting industry functions, or is it because of the mindset or the huge expectation?
I think, the bigger problem is and Joe Rogan, I use him a lot because he is an amazing example, right?
Yeah.
Not just because he has a successful show. It's everything that happened before he had a successful show. A
Yes.
lot of people don't understand how important the first decision that you need to make if you're gonna start a podcast is what am I gonna talk about? And a lot of people make that mistake where they go on YouTube or they go into Google and they try to find what is trending out there. What is everybody searching for? But if that's not a topic that you're passionate about,
Mm-hmm.
you have already you've already put your podcast in the graveyard because when it gets tough and you everybody does it, they look at their stats and at the beginning they see 3 downloads for the week or 5 or whatever that number is, and it's depressing. So,
Hmm.
you've gotta have passion behind it. Joe Rogan did before he started it. He did it to kinda go along with his comedy, he wired up his house and put cameras everywhere and invited his friends over and just made jokes and laughed and had a good time that they like they would have if there was no cameras there. And that authenticity is what carried the show through.
That's true. That's absolutely right, Don. And I want to kind of also bring in another point here. Like, a lot of creators would hear that and say, yeah, but I'm not trying to build something like a media empire or something huge. I just want to make good content and connect with people who care. It's a genuine intention.
Yeah.
Where's the line between having sustainable structure and then sucking all the creative soul out of it? Because um it may sound like you're saying the scrappy passion project approach is doomed from the start.
Yeah. So, you know, that's a good question because you have to know where you want to get to in order to be able to map it out. And there is absolutely a place in this industry for the people that just have a story and that just have a topic that they want to talk about and maybe bring guests on, maybe not. And there's plenty of apps out there that will make this feasible. You know,
Yeah.
one of them being, I don't use it personally, but I have in the past. Riverside is a
Yes.
good app for the beginner, and you can do your recording. You can hit a few buttons, and it will completely edit a lot of the stuff out, and that right there is going to take you above and beyond the normal podcaster, the one that's not gonna make it. And people don't understand that you used a number, 12 podcasts or whatever. At the end of the
Mhm.
day, that is really how quick some of these podcasts never see another episode is shortly right around that 10 podcast episode mark. And it's because one, that podcaster didn't put down what his expectations were. Again, like we
Mhm.
said, do you want just a show that you're sharing content? Maybe it's a hobby. Maybe I'm a golfer and I just want to talk about uh, podcasting and bringing on other guests and learning tips and sharing my strategies and so forth. And it's just for fun. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But keep it in that ballpark where you're not trying to do an episode every other day or 4 recordings a day for
Mhm.
your hobby because you're gonna burn yourself out. Um, the other side of this is most podcasters start there and it changes later. They get hooked. For me, myself,
Mhm.
my flagship show, Spirits and Stories with Donald Dunn, has been
Mhm.
going on now for, I think we just hit year 5, and
Wow.
people don't realize that show started with 2 people that didn't even know what a podcast was. If you go back and you look at the first year's worth of episodes, the audio is horrible, the video is horrible. Yeah, and the show has grown so much. But what people don't understand is that show started out as therapy for myself, dealing with PTSD and some other struggles. I was able to share my stories with other people. And at that point of the career, I didn't care if one person watched the show or 10,000 people watched it. It was about the fact that after the show, I felt better for sharing. And so as the show grew, it the expectations of myself changed. As
Yeah.
I felt healing, I started to just want to help others and bring others on and let them tell their stories. And that's how that show started. So it started out of passion. And now here we are. I'm year 4 into that, and I'm now taking it to the point where I want to, one, I created a media company with the purpose to help the podcasters out there that don't know what they want or don't know how to get there, uh, or just don't wanna spend the time with editing, marketing, and all those other, non-fun stuff because right now you can lose a lot of money testing different products and different platforms that don't promise.
Exactly. This is a very important point that you highlighted because there are now, I guess we started like 3 4 years back, 4 years back actually, right? Amidst the like during the pandemic or just after the second lockdown was lifted here in India. And it started with it's a kind of a very interesting story because the person who started he started with some LinkedIn, live discussions. So Avik started the whole Healthy Mind by Avik platform, and he started this with some LinkedIn live sessions. So he comes from an human resource background, and he is quite passionate to talk about different aspects in HR. So a couple of episodes he was doing, but they were not getting much of those, much of the traction or response or engagement. But one specific episode that you did on mental health, and surprisingly that it happened in front of me, that I saw that he got calls from few people from countries like Singapore, Malaysia, and 2 3 other countries. I don't remember the name of those countries, but he he got an idea that yes, I think this is something that people actually want to talk about. And research and everything, then he came across and he started his first podcast, Healthy Man, Healthy Life, on mental health. From there, I joined him because I actually took a huge interest in, the work behind that was, getting done. Like, and yes, as you mentioned, initially, horrible audio, background noises, honking, and this and that. But then,
Yeah.
gradually, through discussions, then there are some good communities in podcasting industry, where people exchange like this tool is better, this tool is really helping, this tool is not that good. So I think it the industry has seen a very significant growth, not only in terms of the quantity of content being put out, but also, other podcasters helping, the new ones, or the the ones who do not have any specific idea about a particular tool also, because it's very easy that you come across 100 tools. For editing, there are so many tools available. For broadcasting, there are so many tools available right now. For marketing, for everything, so many. So it's very easy to get confused and kind of burn out cash or money into that, and then there is no considerable result or output.
Yeah. You know, there's one topic especially, right? SEO has been around
Yeah.
for a long time, and people are familiar with the abbreviation SEO. A lot of them know that it's about making Google
Mm.
fully understand what you're doing and how to find you and where to put you in their searches. But
Yeah.
what people don't understand is Google themselves is not going to be the primary method that people find your show. And so just using SEO alone is great, but you've got to tailor it to the platform and how the algorithms in that platform work for um, how are they looking for products. So, you know, that's something that a lot of people do wrong when it comes to that advanced
Correct.
side. Yeah, once you've decided that, hey, I do want to make this go bigger and further, that is
Mhm.
that is gonna be the first place where you start, and there's a lot of little things that you can do without even purchasing or paying for any other products, right? For one,
Mhm.
you have to understand your competition, and everybody in you go to Apple, you're gonna see there's charts and categories and so forth. Um, if you don't even know which one of those categories you're in, then
Mhm.
you've got some learning to do because um, if you want to be on that list and be a ranked show, then you need to know who you're going against and what are they doing correctly. So I strongly suggest one, you take the time and you watch some of those shows. The other thing that is super simple to do is how are people finding those shows? What are they doing differently that when somebody types in uh, podcast business, why is it that Barracks Media's network shows don't come up and somebody else's does? What's different about that? And you can do that super simple with the technology that's out there now. You can take the shared link that Apple gives for one of your competitors,
Okay.
put it into ChatGPT and say, what is the metadata for this link? What is it that I can't see when I put it in here and I hit click and it just takes me to their show? And it's going to pull up
Mm.
their whole RSS feed. It's going to pull up their keywords. It's going to pull up their
Mhm.
description. It's going to pull up all sorts of other stuff. And then you can compare that with your link. Have ChatGPT do the same thing with your link and find out what it is that's different. What is my keywords that I'm using compared to them? And then what are the top 10 keywords for this category that I'm in? And then the fun part comes, right? This is where you get to be creative again. You identify those 10 keywords that fit your show that are shared between you and your competitors. And then you get to strategically figure out how do I use those keywords so it doesn't look like I'm just saying, this episode was about Donald Dunn of Barracks Media, and then podcasting episode, and all these other keywords that don't make any sense out of the description. You've got to strategically put those words into that description so one, it makes sense to the reader, but most importantly, when the platform searches your description base, it's finding those same keywords that the majority of the people that are coming to are searching for. I hope that makes sense the way I put it.
Absolutely, absolutely, Donald. And this is a huge learning for me as well. Honestly, the major part of it I was not aware. Um, and that's exactly it is like, and for listeners as well, maybe any future potential podcaster is listening to this episode, and they'll be like they'll be having their oh my god aha moment. Like that's what we say, the aha moment or the light bulb moment. But yeah,
Yeah.
very very useful insight.
Yeah. When I realized when I did it the first time, I had been podcasting for 3 or 4 years at that point, and I was like, I cannot believe what I'm missing here. You know, just comparing their stuff to mine, I thought I was back to year one again with bad audio and bad video because my descriptions and titles and everything is just completely horrible. And it's when you learn those small techniques that truly make a difference.
It does. Absolutely does. No doubt in that. Donald, I'll be very selfish because this is something that we are also trying to figure out. Let's
Yeah.
talk about sponsorships. I mean,
Okay.
it's a dream for a lot of podcasters, including me as well. Like, the numbers, like we have to get enough downloads, land a sponsor, maybe quit the day job. There is no money, so we don't have to worry about the monetization part. But you have said, and this is also once again kind of surprising for me as well, most good shows cannot access sponsorships even when they're doing quality work.
Yeah.
What's the disconnect? How does it make sense here?
And it's because now we're trending on the business industry, not so much the podcasting industry, right?
Uh-huh.
So the people that you were talking to that you're gonna approach and say, "Hey, I think your product would be a great fit for my show. We'd be interested in a sponsorship or a partnership." And now what you're talking about is you're talking about in a business agreement. So you're looking at, I think that product would resonate with the customers. My
Mhm.
morals agree with the company and the things that they're doing. So I feel comfortable advertising for you. And in return, I need money to make the show grow and use for additional costs. So it's a partnership.
Yeah.
On the other side of that, you're talking to somebody that makes widgets. They make whatever that product is, and that is what their baby is. That is their creativity. So they're looking at your show as a return on investment. How much am I going to increase sales? What benefits am I going to get? And is it worth the amount of money that you as a show is asking for? Well, when you start looking at things that way
Mhm.
and you say, well, on average, each episode gets about 40 downloads. That number is one of their calculations. I'm going to give this person $100 and on average, I'm going to get 40 people to download this episode. And then depending on where they put my advertisement, whether it's at the beginning or at the end, the reality is the average person either skims a podcast or is gone within that first 25 to 30 minutes because they listen to it in their car on their way to work. And once that travels up, the podcast is up. So those numbers become extremely important. And if you're not in that getting thousands of downloads for your one show in a 7-day period, you're going to have a hard time appealing to businesses that are looking at you as a monetary value. What is the return on investment they're going to get? And that is why networking is extremely important. Um, if you don't have that full marketing team or that budget to plan a strategic way to market your show, then you need to be part of a network where you can combine these downloads. And when you approach these people, now you have gained the upper hand because
Yeah.
you're now trying to sell advertisement through a network of 20, 30 different podcasts. And those numbers now drastically change. You're talking in 7 days, maybe you've had 2 or 3,000 downloads. And
Mhm. Mhm.
that's why it's important to approach them, one, with explaining why the network is a good partnership for them, what the belief behind that network is. Um, have anybody out there ask yourself this: if you go to Spotify, right, and
Uh,
you start your show through Spotify, they have a advertising program
yeah.
where
Yeah.
where after a while, once you qualify, they'll pay you to advertise uh,
Yeah.
for them. But what you don't understand is they're doing that because they can get you to do it for pennies on the dollars of what it would cost them to create a commercial and advertise on other platforms. So there again, now you've got a podcasting company or a media company that is looking at your show and saying, okay, there is a return on my investment because I can pay this person much, much less to advertise and then help them grow so that my investment grows with it without actually having to spend more. So my point being is everything on the sponsorship side has nothing to do with your show other than your stats. You can have the greatest show in the world, but if you're failing at reaching people, that sponsor is not going to care how great your show is because his product's not going to get in front of anybody.
Exactly. Exactly. And this can be a hard pill to swallow, but that's the reality because it's business, it's transaction.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Absolutely makes sense. Because it feels like that we have created this narrative where monetization equals sponsorship deals and anything else is somehow lesser. What about Patreon, premium content, direct audience support? Something like which YouTube does, Donald. Like, is the sponsorship model even worth chasing for most people, you think?
I will tell you, most people, the answer to that is no. Unfortunately, it is a model that can help, but the reality is, again, we're now talking with a customer. Now we're turning our show into a product, and
Mm.
and you have to appeal. What is it that other person is going to get for their money? If all I'm advertising is, hey, if you are my Patreon member, you're gonna get ad-free content. Okay. Well, if they're watching your show on YouTube, there's a good chance that they're already paying for YouTube Premium, which means they're already getting your content for ad-free. If it's an audio podcast, the two biggest platforms that the most is Apple and Spotify, and all of them have premium content already that provides it ad-free if they pay for it. So you have to get very creative, right? And one of the things that I see a show out there that's very successful, it's high in the rankings is the Sean Ryan show. And um he's not successful because of his Patreon, even though he will tell you that the reason why he gets to do what he's doing is because of his Patreon. But the reality is he has amazing guests. He has uh important messages. He has a team behind him. And the reason why he has built that Patreon account is because he's came up with that way to not just take the Patreon account and have discussions or give them ad free. He allows them to be a part of the show by asking questions that the guests are going to hear. Now, the other part of his Patreon that a lot of people don't know is Sean Ryan also has a security business. He teaches proper gun, how to fire a weapon, how to protect your house, how to do those types of security type things with his background that he is also wrapped up into his Patreon account as well. So he is now saying you're going to get a lot for your money, and YouTube can't provide this. So that is why people have paid for his Patreon memberships, is because of all those additional little things, that creativity that he created to make the return on their investment worth it.
Yeah.
So what I like to tell people is, one, focus on your guest. Okay. Make sure that the guest that you're bringing is one, going to appeal to your audience. Because if you're not bringing in guests that people are interested in, they're definitely not going to pay for anything that you have to sell because they don't even like the free version. And then the second part of this is remember that your job as the host is to highlight the guest. You have to do everything you can do to make that guest look the best, sound the best, and ask the questions. As a host, you're going to find out that that is harder done than it sounds, because sometimes you will get guests that only want to say one line answers,
Exactly.
and you feels like you're pulling teeth trying to get stuff out of them, for your guests. But unfortunately, that is your job. That's what, as a host, you have to do, is to ask those tough questions, make sure that the show is engaging. And if you try to use a skit before, wad it up, throw it in the garbage, because you're gonna lose the points for being authentic at that point.
That's true. That's true. And this is, a few days back, on LinkedIn, I was seeing a lot of posts, where many podcasters, they struggle to say no to guests. I mean,
Yeah.
because specifically if someone is a beginner, if they obviously, I mean, it's a valid point that I have to get, because I have to push content out, so I need
Yep.
to have guests, I need to say yes to everyone. But this is something that I have learned the hard way, that sometimes, because it's your podcast, it's your content, so
Yeah.
you get to at least respectfully say no to a guest. Or maybe, let's say, there's a situation where guests seem to be uninterested, or maybe saying on one or two lines, which has actually happened with me and other hosts on our team. They have asked me questions, oh my goodness, I was feeling so disheartened and so demotivated because the guest was not engaging, just saying one or
Yeah.
two lines. And it's still, it's okay. So,
You know,
mm,
this is another part of this industry, and
yeah,
that a lot of people don't. They think the creativity ends with the show, and it really doesn't. Um, you know, I would much rather take an episode that I knew did very well, an older episode, rebrand it as a replay, or come up with a strategic way to twist the title. There is billions of people on this planet. And if you think that every single person listened to your podcast, that episode, the very first time it came out, you are extremely mistaken. But I would much rather take an episode that I know, if I'm short on guests, and I normally push out, say, 2 times a week, right? So just for the listeners, Wednesdays are usually the best podcasting consumption day for audio,
yeah, yeah,
and then followed by Tuesdays and then Thursdays, right? In that order, those are your 3 days of the week. If you are releasing on your convenience Friday nights, Saturday nights, you are you are already going to see a huge increase by just changing your day, because those are family days. Those are family times. That's when people are going to the club. That's when people are going to the park. That's when people are doing things with their families. Your Sunday nights will be better than those 2 days. But at the end of the day, the middle of the week is the best part. That's the truth of when you're going to reach. Well, if I can't fill my Thursday slot, let's say for myself, most of my shows I release Tuesdays and Thursdays. If
yeah.
I'm short, I would much rather take a episode that I knew did very well, an older episode, retwist it, rebrand it, and resubmit it and put it back out there,
Favorites.
than to take a guest that I know that my audience is not going to be happy with. Because now it's about brand protection, not just um filling a date.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, some golden nuggets in there, listeners. So, yeah, before we wrap it up, Donald, I think uh, I mean, we already are extending on the time, but I think it's a very interesting question to have a perfect place to land here. That you have talked about failure in the business world not actually being failure, but opportunity. That's
Yeah.
what I also realize. But then It's a nice idea in theory, or like people would like to say during a podcast, but in practice, when podcast it quietly dies after, let's say, 12 episodes or 20 episodes. It just dies. I mean, there's no pivot, no lesson learned, just silence. So where's the opportunity in that? Like, how do you reframe failure when the thing you built just didn't work?
Absolutely. So, a lot of times it can be a pivot by just as simple as a host, right? Let's say again we're talking about this guest or this podcaster that went with Spotify because it was um a free platform. It's a huge name in the industry. A lot of people know him by Anchor. But at the end of the day, if you're going through that method and you're not reaching the audience that you want, there is a lot of things that you can do to pivot. One is consider moving to a different host. It's not in Spotify's best business plan to monitor to uh, plan your episode and push it so that it's found easily by Apple or some of these other
Mm.
directories. Their whole purpose of offering podcasts is to keep people on their platform. No different than Facebook or anywhere else, right? So you need to think like a business. A lot of people don't understand that if you're trying to get views through Facebook, if you're linking your content on there, if you're saying, "Hey, welcome followers, I want everybody to come and watch my new episode on YouTube," and you put that YouTube link in there, Facebook's algorithm will automatically downgrade that because they don't want people to see the link and leave the platform to go to YouTube, which is a competitor, and watch your episode. You will get a lot more views by directly uploading your episode onto Facebook.
Mhm.
And most people are not gonna leave a platform to be in anyways. So, just as simple as by looking at, 1, who is it that you're hosting with? What am I getting from them? Whether it's paid, you know, there's a lot of very affordable quality hosting companies out there, Buzzsprout being one of the best ones. Their stats yeah, their stats are great, their prices are fair. Mm. And they have no interest in other than helping you, They want to see you succeed as well because the moment you decide to shut your podcast off, they're losing revenue because you now are gonna downgrade your account to the free version and walk away. So, but by looking at what is the purpose of the platform I'm on, with Spotify, you're not the customer, you are the product. And that's why it's free. When you go to Buzzsprout, you are now the customer. You're not the
Yes,
product.
absolutely.
So so one, you can pivot by changing your host and seeing if that gives you a different outcome. Um, Two, you can pivot by adjusting your descriptions, your titles, your artwork, um, all of those things. You would be surprised at how big of a change that makes.
It does.
So
Absolutely does.
there's little things that you can pivot without having to completely redo your whole show and say, let me try these other things. And then if they still don't work, then you need to understand that there's a reason why podcasting is expected to be over $25 billion industry by next year. Um,
Wow.
it's not because podcasting is failing. So maybe you do need to look at the content you're talking about. If I had a podcast that was discussing making coffins, well, maybe there's not very many people interested in wanting to learn how to make coffins. And if your podcast is so niche that your audience is so small, then maybe you do need to rebrand yourself and relook at how you're doing things. But just quitting is never gonna get you to where you wanted to be to begin with. But learning from the lessons of the things that's not working and taking that failure and turning it into opportunity will definitely push you further.
Wow, listeners. What a good place to land in here because I don't know about you listeners, but for me, it provides a lot of hope, lot of, I shouldn't say toxic positivity, but from a realistic POV, it does provide me a lot of hope. And I hope that you also get that um, ignited feeling. Maybe if you are not feeling good with your podcasting, or if you're thinking that this industry, this market is already cluttered, there's no opportunity for me, rethink about it. And it doesn't have to be like a huge step. Start small, maybe write it in a journal or think about something, but yes, start with something. And yes, definitely take away the golden nuggets that Donald just shared today. And Donald, of course, if our listeners would like to further seek some help, wisdom on podcasting, and overall the whole essence, the whole life of business, running a media network, how they can connect with you.
Well, the best way is definitely from our website, barracksmedia.com. Um, there you can find our editing services. You can look to, if you have a podcast that you're looking to join a network, you can apply to be a part of our network as well. And there's benefits that come from just being a part of a network. You know, a greater pool, more people helping with the same cause, increasing downloads, and a better approach for reaching sponsors. So those are all things that you can do from the website. If you just want to reach out to me, you can email me at ddunn@barracksmedia.com. I'm glad to answer any questions or anything out there. If you just got a one-off question that you need help with, reach out to me, and I'd love to share it. You can find us on Facebook at Barracks Media. That's our name there. And same with Instagram as well. And same with, I think on YouTube, it's Barracks Media Inc. Um, for our YouTube channel. But yeah, feel free to reach out and learn more through the website.
Of course. And listeners, to make that easier, I'll have all the links, all the details that Donald just shared mentioned in the show notes. So find them attached along with this episode on your favorite podcast platform. And I think, I am taking away from this conversation that honestly, podcasting, most creative business ventures, they don't fail because people are not talented or passionate. They fail because we underestimate the infrastructure. The unsexy, boring stuff that happens when nobody's watching. The systems, the consistency, the clear understanding of what you are actually trying to build. And maybe the hardest part is that none of this guarantees success. But then you can do everything right and still not get the outcome you wanted. But at least you'll know why. You'll have the data, you'll have the insights, and you will be better positioned for the next thing. So, with that, thank you to everyone for tuning into this episode of BizBlend. And Donald, thank you so, so much. I'm really, really thankful that you are sharing the experiences, the insights from the work that you have been doing. And thank you so much once again. And yeah,
Thank you for having me on. I had a great time.
same here. Absolutely. And listeners, once again, stay tuned to this blend. Share this episode with your fellow podcasters and anyone who's looking forward to start in this industry. And I'll be back with another episode. Until then, do the work and be honest about what the work actually is. Thank you and take care.